Winnipeg serial killer Jeremy Skibicki has been given 4 life sentences in the murders of 4 Indigenous women. Family members got a chance to speak about the impact of the murders have had on their lives. CBC's Cameron McIntosh has more.
Well, really, the sentence here was never in doubt. First-degree murder in Canada carries a mandatory life sentence with no parole eligibility for 25 years. Jeremy Skibicki will serve 4 of those all at the same time. Today's hearing was really about the victims' families and the community, an opportunity to talk about their feelings and a chance to confront a serial killer. Last month, Jeremy Skibicki was found guilty of first-degree murder in the murders of Morgan Harris, Rebecca Contois, Mercedes Myron, and a 4th unidentified woman known in the community as Buffalo Woman. Skibicki admitted to having sex with their corpses, to dismembering their bodies and throwing their remains in the garbage. Today, the victims' families spoke about the type of people the victims were and expressed their grief and their anguish over their losses.
I won't ever name him. I will never say his name. He's an evil monster. He has hurt this family, tore it apart, ripped our souls to pieces. Like, that's going to be there forever. We're forever going to lose my girl. We don't have her home. He is an evil monster, and I will never say his name. He has no name to me. He's just an evil monster that can rot in jail. And I hope he gets what's coming to him. Like, I want him to suffer. He made my girl suffer. He needs to suffer.
2 community leaders also spoke about the broader implications in the Indigenous community in Manitoba and across Canada, saying many Indigenous women just do not feel safe in this country, and that these crimes specifically have caused a lot of trauma. Other family members spoke directly to Skibicki himself. Cambria Harris, a daughter of Morgan Harris, said he was a vile monster and said that no God, religion, or afterlife would ever be able to save him. Through it all, Skibicki sat looking forward, emotionless. When the sentence was finally made official at the end of the hearing, a packed courtroom burst out in applause as Skibicki was let out. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, my next guest spoke at today's hearing. Sandra DeLaronde is an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. She was also involved in creating today's community impact statement, and she joins us from Winnipeg this evening. Sandra, really appreciate you giving us your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I can only, an extremely difficult day indeed for you, for the community, for the families. Can you give us a sense what was heard in the courtroom today, what the mood was like? We heard in Cameron's story there's a lot of pain, but at one point there was a sense of elation.
Yeah, it was very emotional sitting with the families before the court started, and to hear their voices, their pain and their frustration was very, very hard, I think, for everybody in the court except for the offender.
Yeah, indeed. And you took the time and wrote a very detailed victim impact statement that your organization submitted on behalf of the community. If you don't mind, we'd just like to play a clip here for our viewers.
Sure.
The loss of these women is deeply personal and communal, with the community expressing that this trial has had a lasting emotional impact. The description of sleepless nights, constant fear, and ongoing grief reflects the profound psychological toll.
What you said there when you talked about the emotional and psychological toll encompassing the community there, talk to me about the importance of that, because we know within Indigenous communities it is about family, it is about community. That was really critical here in the sentencing hearing.
It was critical, and I think it really speaks to the foundation and the call for families for the last 50 years for the national inquiry, and addressing those issues, that so that we know that not just one case or one victim or one family, it impacts all of us, and that there is a real need to to be able to move forward, you know, not just for the families, but for the community as well, that the communities, individuals need to feel safe in the communities. And we need to address that in real, concrete, meaningful ways and immediately.
And you've said that. You said that over and over again as you were in your involvement in creating the 231 calls for justice from the 2019 National Inquiry for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. This sentencing, although it was quite clear which direction the judge was going to go in, something that you also said, the sentencing becomes part of the public record. Having said that now, and where we stand, and those constant calls for justice and action, what happened today? How does that move things forward then?
Well, it moves things forward because now it is part of the court record, part of the public record, and we talk about, it was addressed by the Crown and certainly Justice Joyle on the mandatory sentencing requirements, life 25 per charge. So is that enough? And for families, of course, it'll never be enough. But we really need to consider that as, you know, how can that particular law be changed to ensure that when we talk about justice, that really justice is served. It may not be consecutive sentencing, but maybe increasing the time allotted for concurrent sentencing before eligibility for parole. So that's one of the kind of concrete things that come out of this. Also, that because we met with many community members across the province, the issue of policing still needs to be addressed, and it has certainly a focus in the national inquiry, but that we have to work together collectively. Police forces need to work with the community in order to implement that change and to understand how policing can be different and strength-based and generative in changing the criminal processes.
Do you think that trust can be built?
I think so. I think it'll take time. It will take a concerted effort by the police forces that, in fact, they mean to address change.
Today, of course, is a very important day, but I know there's more that must be done in terms of giving closure to the families. The search in the Winnipeg landfill that is yet to proceed, but we know that an important step has been made and further steps are now being efforted. Your thoughts on that part as well, because families are still reeling for that closure.
I think what this case brought up, especially with the additional DNA profiles that were found in the offender's apartment, you know, that many families are not sure if maybe those profiles belong to their loved one. Being able to match a profile for Mashkadebi is important. So those kinds of issues need to be dealt with, and as well, you know, the families and community Indigenous women and girls have carried these issues for generations now, and that there has to be a real commitment by all levels of government, including municipalities, to implement the calls to justice in a way that's meaningful, and then, you know, put a process in place as identified in the calls to justice that can determine, you know, are those calls to justice being implemented? Are they effective? And if not, how can we change them?
Indeed, and have a much safer future for young women as you move forward. Sandra, thank you so much for giving us your time again. I know on a very difficult day, but a day at least there's some level of victory, perhaps. And our deepest condolences, of course, to the families and the community. Sandra DeLaronde is an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Sandra, again, thank you.
Thank you.